this is the only nasty picture, and it's not too bad, so don't stress. All right. When a snake bites you, it typically bites you under the skin, and then the venom, over time, is going to move from the extravascular space, so that place under your skin, the lymph system, etc., into the vascular space, and that takes over 100 hours for that to happen. So envenomation is really a very long process. It takes a long time from start to finish. I think this thing is not as handy. Okay. So I thought it was. Because of equilibrium, as the venom is moving on its own from the extravascular space into the vascular space, your symptoms are going to get worse. As the antivenom binds to that venom that's in the bloodstream, it will pull more and more of the venom from the extravascular space into the blood. So, if you think back to the first little cartoon drawing, where you have one venom particle with several antivenoms bonded to it, if that falls apart and dissolves, you get a spike in how much venom is in the blood. Does that make sense? Yes? Yes. Okay, thank you. So, it's important, if you think about how much antivenom you need to give, it is important to realize that you have to get all of the venom that is eventually going to be in circulation throughout the entire envenomation process. If you don't get enough, you might pick up what's in the blood when you give the antiserum, but then as more venom is pulled into the blood as the envenomation continues, you're going to end up with too much and not enough antiserum to take care of it. So it's very important to have extra antiserum so you know that you can have all of the venom taken care of. And it's important that once the antivenom binds to the venom, it stays bound so that it does get carried out of the body. And this brings us to the biggest problem with CroFab, and that is this thing at the bottom called recurrence. Recurrence occurs when you have initial control of the snakebite symptoms, and then a day, 2 days, 3 days later, 72 hours, that's 3 days, right? Yeah. You get return of the symptoms. That's what recurrence is. And it currently occurs in about 10 to 15% of snakebite here in the United States. And we're not entirely sure why it happens, but we think that what's happening is, first, because CroFab is small and the particles that it forms, even when it binds to the venom, are small, they get cleared out of your body very quickly, and then there's not enough left as the rest of the venom moves into the blood that was in your body to begin with. And also, we think it might be due to the dissolving of the complex between the antivenom and the venom. So that's something that's a real problem, and the solution for that here in the United States is to give what they call maintenance doses, which is additional vials of antiserum every, what, 6 hours, 12
2 hours.
2 hours. Every couple hours for 72 hours. The problem with that is that CroFab is a little bit expensive. About $1,000 a vial. So, and that's wholesale. So by the time you get the hospital markup and all of that, you're easily looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills. Depending on how good your insurance is, who knows how much of that you might actually have to pay for, but it's pretty expensive. So the conclusion from this, and really from many other talks that we saw as well, is that there really are some serious issues with CroFab, and there are potentially some ways it could be made better. If they didn't take it down to Fab 1, it might be a good step. But I'm not sure exactly what's going to end up happening with that. But the most important lesson that I took away from it is if you are using CroFab, you need to make sure that the maintenance doses are given. All right, does anybody have any questions about this in general? Yeah?
I'm just curious, given the limitations, why is CroFab
the benefit to CroFab is that you are very unlikely to have an allergic reaction to it. If you get an IgG and there's this thing saying, I'm a horse, your body's going, well, I'm not a horse. I have a problem with that. And that is risky, and it is a problem with other antivenoms. So that was the idea, to make it more pure and make it safer to use. But
how does the risk of the side effects compare to the 10 to 15% risk of recurrence with the crowfab?
that's a really good question. I don't happen to know the incidence of anaphylaxis with
Anaphylaxis, life-threatening anaphylaxia from the old product Wyeth was overrated. You would get serum sickness, but actually people dying from anaphylaxia.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
Dr. Hardy and I tried to find actual documentation, and we could only find 2 people that ever died. And one was a lady in Kansas in 1990 that they gave it directly to her, not in an IV. They just reconstituted and gave it intravenous to her. So she ended up going into anaphylactic shock and died. But typically, even the old Wyeth stuff and some of the old stuff from overseas, you know, you might have serum sickness. If you've been exposed to horse serum before, you have a good chance of having an allergic reaction. But, you know, it's kind of weighing it out. Crofab has a lot of issues that, you know, when it first came out, they thought it was going to be the next best thing to milk or something, but it has problems. The fact that it clears out of your body is easy on your kidneys also, but it's just very much a pharmacokinetic mismatch between the venom and the anti-serum. So there's other things missing, we believe. That's
kind of goes back to the snakebite initiative too, is that, you know, crofab was approved on a very small number of cases because Wyeth was stopping production and we needed to have something. And, you know, really only learn how things work once you actually try them.
And is that why crofab has a monopoly, because there are no other products currently
making anti-serum is not really a very profitable thing.
It's an orphan drug.
Yeah.
And Wyeth, you know, just kind of let it slide because they weren't making enough off of it to compete with crofab.
There aren't that many cases.
Yeah. Are there laws prohibiting importing the other variety of antivenom from other countries?
Antivenom that is made in another country is not approved by the FDA. And so in order to possess it or use it in the United States, you have to have a license from the FDA. So like that's how we have our foreign antivenoms, is we have a license from the FDA and we buy them from wherever, Africa, South Africa, or Thailand, or whatever. And a private individual can do that with the help of a physician, but you know, that's not something that they're doing on a large scale. They are testing Bioclon, the Mexican antivenom. They're trying to get that approved for use here in the United States. I don't know if it's going to get approved or not, but they are trying to do that. So.
And if you saw the show, the horrible show he was talking about, Fatal Attractions, where the lady died from the Urutu bite, they left a lot of facts out of there. One is she died because of reoccurrence. She was given crofab, and 72 hours later she bled out. She was never unconscious, like they said in the show, until she bled out into the brain. Now, if she had not had a bleeder in the brain, she could have self-corrected her coag issues and maybe survived without a reoccurrence occurring, but she had a pre-existing aneurysm. So that's why she died.
Was she receiving the supplemental 2-hour doses or not?
No, she wasn't. They sent her home.
It was early on when crofab started to be used, and I think it just wasn't real well publicized that needed to be done yet. Right. So,
she was administered the crofab, her coags corrected themselves, and then she was sent home. And then she came back with a headache and then had a cerebral hemorrhage, or an aneurysm actually.
All right, well, we're going to shift gears a little bit, talk about colubrids. So colubrids, for those of you who may not know, is the largest family of snakes, and it includes most of the non-venomous snakes that you're familiar with. Rat snakes, king snakes, like what Ed brought. I could go on and on. A huge number of snakes, most of which are considered to be non-venomous. However, some of them are indeed venomous, and some of them are quite venomous. And so there's been some discussion about that and kind of how science looks at a technically venomous animal that might not really be dangerous to people. So that's what Dr. Cardong was talking about here. And these are the pictures are a hognose snake.